In my theater experience, I would do that. I would rehearse with these people, and you get to to know their beats, their rhythm. You know, you get to know how to play off them, and um, and there's a connection that forms, certainly, and that's a really beautiful thing, I feel.
Hello, Ben. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Thanks for being here. Now, your name, Ben Lejeune or Lejeune?
Lejeune, yeah,
So tell us a little bit about that. It doesn't have an R in it.
that's correct. It's kind of a tricky one. The origin is French. So the story that I've been told is my ancestors came down from France, went over to Canada, and while they were in Canada, some of them changed their last name to the English translation, which is Young. And some of those people, some who translated, some who didn't, moved down to Louisiana, kind of got mixed in with the Cajuns, and so my last name became the Cajun pronunciation of a French name, and Lejeune is how I believe it was originally pronounced, kind of either evolved or uh, de-evolved, maybe, into Lejeune. And so when people ask, uh, where's the R in your name? I say, right next to the R in Colonel. Um,
Oh, I like that. Right
and
next to the R in Colonel.
that reference is kind of toward Camp Lejeune, or a lot of people call it Lejeune over in North Carolina. It was founded by or was named after a relative of mine, um, John Archer Lejeune. He he was called the greatest leatherneck of all time, and so it's kind of a neat thing. It's kind of our little claim to fame there. So it's kind of fun.
Now, Ben, I always ask my clients or my people, whatever you want to call them, um, do you consider yourself an artist in things that you've done and continue to do?
Yeah, so I guess I've never really put that title to myself. I aspire to do artistic things, but I guess I've never really sat down and considered myself an artist. But um, if someone were to call me that, I'd accept it. Yeah.
Okay. Now, you previously did some acting. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I certainly am a fan of the performing arts. I started off doing local theatrical productions, and that really was just that was the start of it all for me. I fell in love, just the it was kind of a just the outlet I was able to get involved in, just the being able to um, have this uh, creative outlet and perform, and the chance of being somebody, developing somebody within my being that I really naturally um, didn't relate to. Things like that, things where you get to develop a new mindset, a way of carrying yourself mentally and even physically. Just that that to me was just a great feeling, a great experience. And so the more I performed, um, the the more people I got to meet, and eventually I met somebody who knew an agent, someone who ran an agency down in Los Angeles, and she told him about me, and he said, have him audition for representation, and I did, happily, and um, I walked out of there with representation, and from there I was able to go on and audition for things like television commercials, film, music videos, television shows. Um, I've I've never been famous, but I've been in famous things, is what I tell people.
Now, tell us a little bit about those things. You mentioned one time you got to work with one of your favorite directors, Tim Burton.
Yes. I received a scholarship for a summer program at Cal Arts, CISA, back in 2007, and Cal Arts was, I believe, where Tim Burton went to study directing. I went there to study acting. Having that on my resume, I suppose, caught his eye because he had somebody call me up and ask if I was interested in being an extra in his rendition of Alice in Wonderland. To which I, fangirled and was just said, yes, of course, And, so in the Red Queen's court, in the background, with a prosthetic nose on, for half a second you can see me. And that was 2 days of filming. I was also in the background for the Cheshire Cat scene, the scene where I believe the Mad Hatter is going to be beheaded, and then it turns out to be the Cheshire Cat. Spoiler alert. And I'm one of the witnesses in that scene. And so we filmed for 2 days. I believe it was 9 hours the first day, 16 hours the second day. And the people who made all that happen behind the camera, Mr. Burton himself, everybody's just the nicest people you could ever meet. And that's one of several amazing opportunities I've had. Possibly my favorite role was as a character named Brian on ABC's Modern Family. That was a great experience. And yeah. So, just little things here and there. Like I said, I've been in famous things.
Tell us what you're doing now. What's going on?
So now I currently am writing a book about my experience on the Appalachian Trail. In 2021, I thru-hiked the Appalachian Trail from Georgia to Maine. It took me 174 days, and in it I experienced the greatest moments of my life and some of the most difficult moments of my life, both mentally and physically. And it was just such a broad range of emotions and hardships and victories, and I just would love to tell the story. And when I'm not writing, when I'm not writing my book, I'm writing poetry and often converting those into lyrics for music. I play around town. Sometimes I play on guitar, sometimes piano, but another creative outlet, music.
Oh, that's really good. So you're multi-talented in the performing arts.
I suppose, yeah.
Now, you said you were writing a book. Tell us more about that.
So, like I said, it's about the Appalachian Trail, and it's about hiking it, at least what you can expect in some areas, in some aspect. Several people a year, we're talking thousands, attempt this trail every year, and it's estimated about 20-25% complete it. And it's, for me at least, it was in many ways nothing like I expected, in some of the worst ways, in some of the best ways. I got Lyme disease while I was on that trail. I got hypothermia. I had to have an emergency tooth extraction. Just crazy things. I was relatively healthy before I was on trail, and my body was put to the test. But it was a beautiful experience, and it really helped me learn that I am able to push myself farther physically and mentally more than I ever thought possible. And I think a lot of people would find that and would agree. Those who have hiked the trail, I think they would agree with that. And it's easy to kind of stay in your comfort zone, to kind of stay in your shell. But then, in my experience at least, when I decide to push, get outside that comfort zone, I find that there are extraordinary things that can happen. So I'm hoping that this book kind of inspires people to say, you know what, I'm not going to put off this adventure or that, dream, and go for it.
Lyme disease and hyperthermia, I understand, but you had an emergency tooth extraction? What was that about?
Yeah, so dental hygiene is important, as we all know. But when you're hiking up and down mountains 15, 20 miles a day, you need a lot of calories in order to keep your body going, right? You got to replenish those calories. And so my theory is perhaps your regular hygiene routine needs to be amped up in order to keep up with all the calories that are going through your mouth. I didn't really do that, I guess. And in Virginia, my tooth way back here at the top started cracking, started breaking. There are times where I was eating some food and felt a crack and spat it out, and there's a chunk of my tooth. And it wasn't until Maine, so months later, my nerves became exposed. It became abscessed. I started feeling this shooting pain up to the top of my head. It was a mess. I had to hitchhike a ride, thumb a ride into town, and when you're hurting that bad and you can't really eat, you can't really go far. Especially, like I said, when you're hiking 15, 20 miles a day up and over mountains. So, luckily there was a doctor, great guy, Dr. Steinke, I believe is his name, Steinke, over in Maine, and that guy took really good care of me, and he offered a root canal. But the problem was with the root canal is that I would have to come back to his office in a week, I believe he said, for a checkup. And I said, Doc, I don't know if I'm going to be in this state in a week. I'm hiking on through. Could you just pull it? And he goes, oh yeah, I can pull it. And so he gives me some shots in my mouth and numbs me up, and then just pulls it right out. And immediate relief, just immediate relief. And so we call people who help out on trail, we call them trail angels. And that guy, boy, he was really looking out for me. He's one of the many people that participated in being the reason why I was able to finish my hike.
Wow. Who would have thought that a tooth would have been a problem making that kind of journey? Was this a wisdom tooth or just a regular tooth in the back?
Not a wisdom tooth, just a regular tooth in the back. And it's funny, now that I'm talking about it, like, I never notice it anymore until I start talking about it, and I go, that tooth is missing. And what he did, what this dentist did, he had some, it was like the size of a Tic Tac. It's this lab-grown pure calcium. And after he removed my tooth, he put that in. And what it does is since it fills that cavity in the gums, it helps prevent infection. And if I ever needed an implant, they could just drill right into it and I could get it. But for a few days, it was kind of weird, and I was tonguing it and everything, and my mouth just had to get used to it. And now on a regular basis, I don't even notice. And you would think that like chewing would be difficult. No, it's all good. It's all fine. We're humans. We're adaptable, right?
Yeah. Well, that's quite the journey. This This book you're writing, do you consider yourself an artist as a writer, or do you just consider yourself a writer? How do you see that?
Yeah, I guess I don't. If and or when I'm able to get this published, I think maybe then I would consider myself a writer. I think right now I would consider myself an aspiring writer. But again, if someone wanted to call me a writer, I would take it as a compliment, and I'm not going to fight anyone on that.
Now, going back to acting and working with Tim Burton, would you go back to acting? Would you do something with that again, or are you done with that?
I think that I would do theater again. In my experience, the stage work and in front of camera work they're really different worlds. And to me, the stage work where you have the audience right there and you kind of feed off of their presence, and you have these people that you're working with, and you come in and you rehearse with them all the time. And I'm sure in lots of cases in film, that's the way it is. There's nothing really that I've been in where it's like, you're going to rehearse with this person for a month or however long. But in my theater experience, I would do that. I would rehearse with these people, and you get to know their beats, their rhythm. You get to know how to play off them, and there's a connection that forms, certainly, and that's a really beautiful thing, I feel. And so with the in front of camera work, pardon me, in front of camera work, I had kind of like a 15 minutes of fame in Bakersfield, where I dropped the puck for the local hockey team. I was in newspapers. I went and talked at schools. I signed autographs, and I would joke. I would say, if I sign this piece of paper, I'm just going to bring down the value of the paper. But my point being, it all felt undeserving. I felt like I was getting more attention and praise than I really deserved. And so I actually left the acting industry and started I became a medical equipment technician and started delivering equipment for hospice. And then after that, I became a caregiver, and again worked with people on hospice, took care of them, and that was a very much a shift of my world, where instead of having the attention be on me and the praise, I decided, let's have me put the attention on someone else, someone who does deserve it because they need it, and so I feel like it humbled me more. Whereas on stage work, theater work, you don't typically get that kind of praise, at least not in local theater work, right? So you don't really get that kind of praise. So it's kind of it's kind of a win-win thing. You at least for me, I stay humble, and I also feel like I get to develop the world that my character is in more, and my character himself. I get to develop better. So yeah, if I were to go back into acting, I think theater is the route I would take.
Now, you and I were talking about villains the other day and how they have as much to contribute as the otherwise known as good guys, do. Would you play a villain, or what kind of character would you like to play if you were to return to acting, whether that be on stage or off?
Yes, that is an excellent question. Thank you. I would love to play a villain. So what's really fascinating about so I am a firm believer in that every great story has conflict, and whether that is a villain or something else. Typically, it's an individual of some sort, um, but every villain has their reason, and that's a fun thing to explore mentally. What's the reason behind what this individual thinks, and why this individual acts the way they act? Um, I had the pleasure of playing a villain in a theatrical production of A Raisin in the Sun. And for those who don't know, A Raisin in the Sun, it takes place in the 1950s, and there's one white character in it, Mr. Lindner, I believe is his name. And I played the white guy, and he is just a straight up racist. And so this was a mindset that I really had to take the opportunity to explore. Now, I seem to recall the production is PG, so I got to keep the language to a minimum, but essentially, there's a family of 3 generations who have a home, if I'm remembering this correctly, in a and they're persons of color, and they're in a predominantly or all white neighborhood, except for themselves, of course. And my character comes in and offers them more money than they paid in order to get them out and keep the neighborhood pure. And what's really sneaky about this character is that he acts as their friend at first. He's like, "Hi guys, my name's Mr. Lindner. I'm just coming in and seeing, heard you guys just moved into the neighborhood," and they invite him in. They offer him tea. They're talking and stuff, and he even says, folks misunderstand each other. If people took the time like this to sit down and talk to each other, I think they'd really get to understand each other better. And they all agree. Who wouldn't agree with that? And if I recall correctly, that's when he kind of turns it to be like so don't blame me for this, but we want you out. And they're kind of like, excuse me. And so when they say, no, we're not going anywhere, that's when he starts to kind of show his colors, his true colors. And he's like, you got to think about your boy. You got to think about when he goes to school. You got to think, almost like a threat, the kids at school aren't going to accept him, things like that. And it makes you go, this sneaky, this snake, man. And he just slithered his way into their home, acting like a friend, and decided to strike when he didn't get what he wanted. And so that was quite the mindset to explore. And what I got to do, in theater is you sit down with the people who are playing the family, and you get to, it's like almost a dance. You got rhythms. You got during this beat, this and this, and how my character starts acting, and la 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 la, is still friendly, and Walter, one of the other characters, starts to realize what this guy's here for, and his demeanor changing, and me trying to take over the conversation, trying to take over the situation to get him kicked out of his own home. And so things like that, like, really not only help develop the story, but it's because it helps develop the story because it develops the character. It develops our heroes because it gives them this mountain of conflict that they have to overcome. And so, like I said, no great story is without its conflicts. And so, yeah, a villain would be fun to explore.
Tell us about some other roles that you've done, if you don't mind.
Well, I've been in musicals. I've been in comedic roles. Um, I have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, and so what that is I have some hyperflexibility in my joints and extra elasticity in my skin, and so I've done some, I've played acrobats, which I'm not really acrobatic, but give me a few days of stretching, and I can look like a contortionist, So just I love I learned musical instruments for acting. I figured let's broaden. I figured let's broaden my chances of obtaining these roles by learning to play the drums, learning to play guitar, piano, ukulele, things like that. And so, um, uh, I'm always looking for, ways of challenging myself. I appreciate, and when I would play, when I was more into acting and into theater, I I really liked portraying characters that weren't like myself, because that really exercises your creativity, right? That really exercises, like, it pushes you to do something that you're not accustomed to. Like I said earlier, getting yourself outside that comfort zone. What can you bring to the table? When I had heard about, there's a film where an actor, I believe, learned how to solve a Rubik's Cube. And I thought, like, those things are impossible. And then I thought, I wonder if I could do that. I sat down, I watched tutorial videos online, and 12 hours later, I was able to solve a Rubik's Cube. And I can do it in a minute and a half, and something I thought I would never be able to do. And I just like doing that, just getting out there and challenging yourself in some way. And that's what I did during my very, very short-lived acting career. And that's what I'd like to inspire people to do through my writing. So I guess it's just kind of a kind of a theme that I come along with.
Now, Ben, out of all that, what was your favorite thing or role to play?
Ooh, that Raisin in the Sun role was that was a real dense and heavy role, and that took a lot of that took a lot to do. In fact, from my understanding, there were 4 or 5 guys before me who read the script and said, "No, this is just too racist. I can't do it." And I understand their feelings behind it, but I feel that it's kind of, in a way, criminal to rob someone of their victories over such trials. And so you you can't tell a historically accurate story without historically accurate conflicts. I mean, you can, but boy, there are going to be people who go, that's kind of insulting that there were victories that people didn't want to portray because it was too, it made them uncomfortable. So my role as Mr. Lindener, I think, was a that was one of the most challenging, and boy, challenging is easily one of the categories that goes under my umbrella term of favorites. So there was that, but also, when I was on Modern Family and I played Brian the drummer, I still get residual checks from that. So I gotta say, that's pretty nice. I don't think that's my favorite role, but every once in a while, I still get a residual check, and I go, you know what? That's a tank of gas, and it really makes me thankful. I really have to express that. I feel like I've kind of neglected this, but I really have to express that the people who have given me the opportunities for these roles have changed my life, and honestly, all for the better. Whether I decide to ever go back to performing arts or not, everybody that has allowed me to portray a character has changed my life for the better and helped me realize things about myself. So that's a beautiful thing.
Well, that's something to be proud of, and you seem to be very noble and humble at the same time, and I really appreciate that.
Well, thank you.
You don't see that a lot. In fact, that's somewhat rare these days when you stop and think about it. Now, where are you with your book? Are you halfway through? When can we expect to see that?
So I'm on draft number 3. And I think this might be the final draft. It's, I don't know. I would love to speak more about it, but there are some things that may or may not happen with it, and so I don't want to say anything that might be misleading in the future.
Sure.
But
Sure.
but boy, if I were that much more confident, this interview would be an extra 30 minutes long. I would love to just talk about it more.
Well, I'd love to hear more about it, but I also don't want you to give away anything you don't want to do.
I don't even. I've got some working titles. I don't even currently have a set title for it. I feel as though maybe once I'm done, I read through the whole thing, it'll be easier to decide. But I've got about 15 different working titles, probably, maybe more. I don't know. They're all notes in my phone,
Yeah, you were saying the other day that you had a title for it, but you wanted to wait till it's finished until you title it.
Exactly.
And that's probably the best way to go about it anyway, right?
We'll see.
Yeah. Well, good luck with your book.
Thank
I
you.
can't wait to see it. And keep up the good work.
Thank you very much, Jared. I appreciate it.
You're welcome, Ben. And thanks again for being here today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Take care, buddy.
Thanks.